The only witness to a federal shooter died in a fiery car crash before he could testify. And the thing that's been bothering me is that nobody seems to be talking about the car itself, because here's what I don't think most people know. The car he was driving wasn't a car like cars used to be. It's basically a computer. It connects to cell towers. It gets software updates that get pushed to said car remotely. It's got vulnerabilities that researchers have already shown can be exploited from miles away. And I'm not sitting here telling you somebody hacked his car. I'm asking whether anyone looked, because what we're going to get into today raises some serious questions. But real quick, I'm Lauren Paritra. My four-legged co-host and boss, Willa Paritra, is taking a little snooze right beside me. And we are going to ask you to take a moment to subscribe before we go any further, because we currently have a lead on Katie Miller, the woman who purposely, intentionally married Stephen Little Bitch Miller, the pale white nationalist behind all of this ICE terror. She married him on purpose. And then she decided to build a podcast on the backs of kidnapped Latinos and children. She's out here building that empire. And so am I. I'm bootstrapped. She is dark money, evil. So the least we can do is subscribe. Like, share, hype. Every subscription, every like, every share is a direct message to Katie and Stephen Little Bitch Miller, and that message is an FU. So now back to it. Let me explain why I'm even bringing this up, because I know how it sounds. In 2015, two security researchers asked a journalist to drive a Jeep Cherokee on a highway in St. Louis. While he was driving, they sat miles away with a laptop and remotely cut the transmission, killed the engine, and took out the brakes. They got in through the car's entertainment system, which was already connected to a cellular network. The journalist, Andy Greenberg, wrote about it afterwards that he lost all control of the car and ended up steering into a ditch with nothing responding. Fiat Chrysler had to recall 1.4 million vehicles after that, not because of the lab test, because something that happened on a public road with a real car going on a real speed. So when people act like remote access to a moving vehicle is some science fiction theory, that recall happened. Keep in mind all of that, because we're going to come back to it and it changes everything. Because this wasn't one-off. Researchers found similar problems in Teslas, in GMs, in OnStars, in BMW's connected systems. And in 2023, a group of security researchers found that across several different car brands, just knowing a car's VIN number, which is public information, it's on your dashboard generally, was in some cases enough to remotely unlock and start the vehicle. The car companies had to issue patches, which tells you these vulnerabilities were real, because companies don't quietly fix things and run these types of campaigns for things that are not real problems. So the car Joshua Orta was driving exists in that same world with the same servers. And look, I'm not pulling this out of thin air. The people who investigate car crashes for a living already know how to look for this stuff. They have the tools. They know what to look for. It's a part of their job. The thing I keep coming back to is whether anyone in this particular case has actually wanted to find that answer. And I'm going to tell you something about that car in a second that I think most people don't even know. Ruben Ray Martinez was 23 years old. He was an American citizen, and he was shot and killed by an ICE officer on South Padre Island in Texas. ICE is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, federal law enforcement. They were the ones that pulled the trigger. The government said that he drove his car at an ICE agent, and another agent fired in self-defense. Anyone think that story sounds super familiar to Renee Nicole Good? His friend, Joshua Orta, was sitting in the passenger seat when this happened. Joshua said that they were trying to turn around in traffic and that officers just started shooting without any warning. He was getting ready to formally sign a sworn statement saying exactly that. From everything that's been reported, he was the only civilian who was actually there and willing to go on record saying that the government's version of events wasn't what happened. Then last weekend, Joshua died. He was in a car in San Antonio and it was going fast, and it hit a utility pole and it caught fire. 3 other people in the car made it out. Joshua didn't. Police said it had nothing to do with the shooting, which is something that the police would say. Now, this is the part where I need you to really take this all in and pull it together. Ruben's family has been trying to get an independent account of how their son died. The investigation has stayed within the Department of Homeland Security, which runs ICE. Department of Homeland Security is the agency that really recently shut down its own internal office for civil rights oversight. Remember that? We covered it here. That office existed specifically to look into situations just like this one, and now it is gone. Joshua was the only person that could have given everyone a version of events that didn't come from the agency that pulled the trigger. He was there, he remembered it, and he was ready to sign his name to it. And now he's gone too. 2 people connected to the same disputed federal shooting, both dead. And every official explanation is coming from the same place, the same agency that has a stake in how things get remembered. And I'm not saying this means something sinister happened, but I'm not. I'm saying that that's a really uncomfortable situation, and I think it's okay to say that out loud. And here's the part that really messes me up, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. The Washington Post reported in January 2026 that 16 DHS shootings have happened since July 2025. And these were declared justified before investigations were even finished. Not one officer was held accountable across any of those cases. Reuters looked at 6 separate violent encounters and found that what ICE said publicly later was contradicted by video and court records. Video and court records. A federal judge in Chicago, looking at a totally different operation, wrote in an official ruling that ICE's statements defending its own use of force involved widespread misinterpretations of facts. In her words, they also call into question everything the defendants say. A sitting federal judge said she doesn't believe what the agency is telling her court. The Martinez case looks exactly like all of those. The agency is using force when somebody dies, and then they say it's self-defense. And the story starts falling apart the second anyone from outside of the agency takes one look at it. The difference here is that the main outside account was going to come from one person. And now that one person is dead in a fiery car crash. And here's what I'm going to leave you with. Before we split, what I'm going to ask you to do is, again, please take a moment to subscribe, like this video, share it with a friend who needs to know what's going on, post it to your Facebook, hype if you can. You got to be watching enough of my videos to get the hype points, and you can only do that on mobile, I believe. We cannot do this without your support, and consider every like, every share, every sub, every action you take to boost this content. And F you to Katie and Stephen Little Bitch Miller, and also to Chrissy Noam, because what the hell?